maiden to the house for a pick six.
Gaskin is in. Touchdown, Dolphins.
Caught. McCole Hardman. Unbelievable concentration for the touchdown for the Chiefs.
To the ground. Tyson Williams free. And near the goal line. Touchdown.
Barkley throws to him. He's got it, and it's in for a Titan touchdown.
Welcome back in, everyone, to the Lucky Shots podcast. I'm Ricky Larson, again today joined by Jacob Montesano and Ben Burns. Don't forget to follow Jacob at Meteorologist Jacob Montesano on Facebook, and I am Ben Burns. For Ben on Twitter, if you are listening to the show podcast form, you can follow the links in my bios on Twitter or Facebook to get to the YouTube version if you'd like to watch the YouTube version. And if you are on YouTube, then you can also follow links to go listen to it podcast form if you would like to that way. Don't forget to like and subscribe and follow everybody on Facebook and Twitter. My Twitter is Lucky Shots Media, and my Facebook is Lucky Shots Media 605. So today we've got news and notes, quite a bit going on this last little bit of the preseason. Then we're going to do a draft recap. We just had our draft on Saturday, so we'll run through who everybody picked and kind of how their teams stack up. And then at the end, we'll have some my guys who we think are going to break out this season, and we're kind of attaching our name to them, saying, you know, this is our guy for the season that we want to see do well. So, without further ado, let's get into news and notes. Start off with Frank Wright says that Carson Wentz, Quentin Nelson, and Ryan Kelly all are going to start practicing on a limited basis this week. He said that earlier in the week. Do we think all of those players will be there? Do we think some of them will be there by week one? What are we kind of thinking?
I'd be really surprised if Carson Wentz is there week one because they said 5 to 12 weeks when he first had the injury.
Large timeline.
When I saw I actually watched some highlights or like clips of him in practice, and he looks. I'm surprised as good as he looks considering he had foot surgery.
Right.
So I mean, I don't think he'd be there week one, but I mean, kudos to him for quick recovery time.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like maybe they should keep Wentz out just for a few weeks of the regular season. Being that he is injury prone, this is already a thing that's happened this season. Give him a little bit of time to recover so that, you know, you can possibly have him for a full season. I think they might be trying to push him because some of the draft picks in that trade rely on him playing a full season. So we'll have to see how that goes. Quentin Nelson, I don't think he'll be back right away. His seemed a little more serious than Carson Wentz's, just how they talked about it with the team, but I guess we'll have to see. For the Jets, they lost 2 players for the season earlier this preseason. Carl Lawson, one of their DNs, is out for the season with the torn Achilles. And Zane Lewis, one of their safeties, is out for the season with a torn patella and a sprained MCL. Situation just kind of gets worse for the Jets, you know?
Yeah, and they had a big offseason. They signed a lot of guys, including Carl Lawson, so that's a big loss for them. And obviously with Robert Saleh coming in, Lawson was going to be one of those big edge rushers for him. So, tough start for them.
Right.
Seems like they're just losing a player after player. I mean, I keep hearing stuff about, you know, Jets players going down, so it's unfortunate for them. They're already one of the weaker teams, so it's very unfortunate for them for sure.
So the Ravens, Lj Forte, one of their linebackers, is out for the season with a torn ACL. Surgery is yet to come. Don't know when that's going to happen, but hopefully for him, he's one of their mainstay pieces in the middle of that defense. So hopefully he's able to make it back by next season. Everything goes well for him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a right ankle sprain, but they said it doesn't look like it is a high ankle sprain. you guys kind of know how I feel about ankles. I kind of talked about it last week. Are you concerned about Clyde fantasy value for at least the beginning of the season with this?
If the fact he's a running back, yes. I mean, if he was a quarterback, I'd be like, all right, he probably will do a little weak the first couple of games, but then he'll probably bounce back. But as a running back, that really does make me nervous. Ankle sprains are always like, oh, it's just an ankle, but those seem to like linger and linger. At least it's not a high ankle sprain, because those seem to linger way longer than people initially think.
Yeah, because that's what happened to Christian McCaffrey last year, was that high ankle sprain.
Also Andrew Luck.
Yep. So if he is able to start by the beginning of the year, is he somebody that you might shift away from for the first couple of weeks because of that, or still just plug him in because he is still on that really good Chiefs offense and his expectations are pretty high?
Yeah, I would still plug him in. If he's playing, I would start him.
All right. Nikhil Harry, he's not too big of a name, but he is one of the bigger names for the Patriots, their receiving corps. He hurt his shoulder versus the Eagles, but they X-rayed him and all that, and there's not any structural damage, so he should be fine. Probably still not somebody that's a fantasy starter for you, but you never know.
I was gonna say, injury or not, don't start him. He's just not. He's just. I think he's turning into a bust of a draft pick for sure. Especially considering Metcalf was picked after him, and Metcalf's basically what they wanted Nikhil Harry to be. So it's very.
I just don't know how I feel about the entire Patriots offense. We'll get down to them a little later as well. Travis Etienne was first spotted in a walking boot this week. Then they found out it was a significant tear and a serious Lisfranc, is that how you say that, injury? And they placed him on IR, effectively taking him out for the rest of the season. And that's per Adam Schefter. So a lot of people were drafting him as a running back 1 or 2. Now he's gone. I feel like that's got to upgrade James Robinson quite a bit.
Completely upgrades James Robinson.
For us, we have been saying how stupid of a draft pick it was, and obviously we didn't want to see the guy get hurt, but it's good for James Robinson, and it's good for people who love James Robinson.
And the person who picked him, we had to be drafted before this injury, so that's a big upgrade,
Oh, yeah.
And there's going to be more like this, especially at running back. So that person's that's the first winner. Whereas James Robinson is the biggest winner of the draft, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's my dad, Gnarly, who drafted him. He had him last year and had him plugged in as a flex. Well, now that's a really good flex option. Mm-hmm. He's also a running back 1 or 2 option, so he's got a lot of options there now. And I have another draft coming up this coming weekend. He's definitely somebody I'm going to be looking at, especially because his draft positioning is pretty cheap for what you're getting.
I think it's going to go pretty high up. I think he's going to go 3rd round, especially
he's going back up there?
Yeah, look what he did last year. He was running back like top 5. I mean, granted, there was a lot of injuries at the top end of the running backs, but he was amazing last year. I keep saying that was, of all the draft picks, that was the stupidest draft pick for the Jaguars to get ETN, because why would you take your best? Why would you draft someone second when your best player last year was a running back? And if it was a wide receiver, it was different. But there's one running back on the field most of the time. Granted, they can sub in and out, but I thought it was a bad pick. So I think if you're looking at a draft going forward, you got to consider him 3rd round
for sure. This one kind of hurt me a little bit. Adam Troutman was carted off the field with a foot injury. Still not any official word on what is going on with him. He was, I think, maybe my very last pick in our draft, because my tight end position's not looking great, and I thought he was somebody that maybe, would have that kind of breakout year. Now it's kind of looking like maybe he won't be there for a large part of the season, if not all of it. And that kind of hurts the Saints because no Michael Thomas for an indefinite amount of time. Now their starting tight end is gone. Traquan Smith, their guy who was supposed to take over for Michael Thomas being gone, is also hurt. So it just leaves them with Marquez Callaway, who, I mean...
Had a great game.
he's had a really good preseason, so maybe he's somebody that bumps up on draft boards. Won't be a top one, obviously, but somebody that you think about when you're going out and drafting.
This is going to go one or two ways for Kamara. It's going to go like Barkley was partly the last couple of years, where they just stacked the box against him. He couldn't do anything. Or he's just going to be a monster because he's their only real good option on offense. I mean, they probably will put Taysom Hill as a wide receiver at this point.
No, that's a thought.
I mean, it's a good... I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't.
But speaking of that, Sean Payton says he still will not name a starter, but he will name a starter before the first game. So, thanks for the help there, Sean. Nobody knows what you're doing at quarterback. Daryl Henderson got a sprained thumb in practice earlier this week. So I'm going to segue that into news from this morning. The Patriots traded Sony Michel to the Rams in exchange for 2 late-round conditional picks. They're going to be a 4th and a 5th round, I believe. So, I mean, does that hurt Daryl Henderson? Does that help him? Do we not care? Because Sony Michel was looking like he was going to get cut by the Patriots anyway. So I more feel like Sony Michel being traded over to the Rams is just so they can have bodies at that position.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think, I mean, ever since Cam Akers got hurt, I think this is still going to be a running back by committee. I think, Xavier Jones, I believe, is their other running back. So I don't know who's going to get the most carries now. I still think once Henderson's hurt, I think he'll get the majority. But, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what they have in store for Michel.
Well, the thing is that my 4th pick, I was between Cooper Kupp and Daryl Henderson, and I am so glad I picked Cooper Kupp because, I've told before, yeah, Daryl Henderson's going to be the guy, but I don't think he's that good, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got replaced. Yeah. It was similar. It was a little different situation. Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year was not doing so hot, and they brought in Le'Veon Bell. Granted, he didn't do much either, but it basically cut his stock a lot. And I'm not surprised that this happened because I've not seen anything from Daryl Henderson to make me think he's a running back 1.
Right. I mean, it doesn't make Sony Michel playable to me in fantasy, but it almost makes the backfield for the Rams unplayable in fantasy this season. So I guess we'll just kind of have to see where that whole situation goes. And, they got Matt Stafford, so maybe they'll just throw the ball 50 times a game. And
I'm fine with that. I got Cooper Kupp on the team. So.
I'd be okay with that, too. I'd like to see it, to be honest. Dak Prescott will be more involved in practice this week. Mike McCarthy said he's definitely going to be involved in some form of practice more this week. But then this is a quote, but to stand here and tell you that he'd be a full go and take all the reps, I'm not there yet. So still kind of a slow progression for Dak coming back from a shoulder injury after the ankle. And
I think it'd be best to just not play him week 1. And I don't want coaches to have, I don't like when coaches have this mindset, but you are playing the Buccaneers. Even if he does play, are you really going to win the game,
Right.
So it's kind of like just rest him, take the L, come back 10 days later because you have, when you're Thursday night game, you have the extra rest and then play him that game. Who are they playing week 2? Let me look it up.
And I mean, I'd love to see a little more Ben DiNucci for my own taste. I loved watching that guy last year. So I figure Dak will probably be starting. We still got 2 more weeks until the regular season starts, and they play on Sunday. Correct.
They play the Chargers the week 2 on Sunday.
Yeah, and that'd be a better slide back in matchup in my opinion. But I guess we'll just have to see. So for your Bears, Matt Nagy continues to say that Andy Dalton is going to be the starter week 1, which we all agree with that.
It's the right choice, but I mean, it all is based on the matchup.
Yeah.
Justin Fields playing against Aaron Donald week 1 is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'd be better than Andy Dalton, but like let Andy Dalton play week 1, let him lose badly, and then maybe they'll switch quarterbacks, and they have the Bengals week 2 at home. So I think the Rams on the road versus the Bengals at home. What's a better start for Justin Fields? It's the Bengals offense might be good, but their defense still sucks. So that's the thing.
Here's a hypothetical. What happens if Andy Dalton goes out and just torches
you keep Andy Dalton in.
Yeah, that's probably best case scenario.
And someone said, it would talk about Allen Robinson. Say what you want about Andy Dalton. This might be the best quarterback Andy Dalton or Allen Robinson's ever had.
I would say so.
Compared to Blake Bortles and then Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles and Chase Daniels for a couple of days. Now, obviously, I think Justin Fields will be the starter at some point this season, unless Andy Dalton is just amazing, which that would be ridiculous.
Which is yet to see. I mean, he didn't look too hot with the Cowboys last year. He had his moments, but the Cowboys' offensive line was also pretty decimated last year as well.
And the Bears play the Rams week 1,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
would you really want Justin Fields to go up against Aaron Donald?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't.
On the road, too.
Exactly.
And it's Sunday Night Football. So, yeah.
So somebody that I really like, Robbie Anderson, we've talked about him a little bit on the show, signed a 2-year, $29.5 million deal. This to me just cements that he is going to be the wide receiver getting the most targets, getting the ball the most, probably behind Christian McCaffrey, we'll see. But for me, that just kind of solidifies that they like Robbie Anderson. They want him there. They want him catching the football for them. So good for him. Really was a good thing for me.
Well, and it's a familiar face for Sam Darnold, too.
Yeah.
They played together with the Jets, so.
Yeah. And, I mean...
That's why I think, I agree with that, with the Robbie Anderson thing and the Christian McCaffrey thing, which is why I think DJ Moore was a terrible draft pick. Like, last year you can say, the Panthers be like, he's your number 1, but Sam Darnold knows Robbie Anderson. So, and obviously Christian McCaffrey is their number 1, even if he's a running back, so that's what I'm going to say.
Well, and I don't see Sam Darnold as a gunner, like streaming it down the field, once every 5 passes, and that's the only value I see in DJ Moore. Yes, he's had, 3 straight seasons of 1,000 yards? 2 straight seasons? Something like that.
I think 2.
But it all comes from deep passes all the time. I mean, he's got 50 catches, 60 catches for 1,000 yards, so that just tells you where his value comes from. And I don't see that being, what this offense is this year. All right. Any more news that you guys saw this week?
Jamar Chase, as there's some allegations coming out that he hit his girlfriend. So
fantastic.
That might derail him. On top of the fact that he's had a really slow start, and he was one of my top. He was one of my top players, and I ended up not drafting him because he just never fell to me. I'd rather have Cooper Kupp than Jamar Chase, and he got drafted before my next pick. So I mean, it hurts. I have Joe Burrow, so it might hurt him a little bit, but. It seems like Jamar Chase has admitted it, actually. So, I guess that's a little better. I mean, it's just
why can NFL players just not be human beings that just don't do that kind of thing? We're seeing a lot more of it, and I just really don't like it. No. It's not a good look for this board.
I mean, it doesn't seem to the point. I mean, if Kareem Hunt's still playing, it doesn't seem to the point that he would be completely banned from the league.
Right.
There's no. It's not like what's his name, Ray Rice. It's not to that level,
right?
Which is probably the worst I've ever seen. But I mean, like I said, if Kareem Hunt's still playing, I wouldn't worry too much. He might get suspended a couple games,
right?
So, but we'll see.
And with his slow start in the preseason, if he gets suspended a couple games, he didn't play at all last year in college. This rookie season for him is just looking more and more like it's not going to be what everybody's drafting him in fantasy to be. So I guess we'll just have to see. And then one more thing I did forget about, the Cowboys had quite a few people put on the COVID list. One of them being CeeDee Lamb. So hopefully all of that gets cleared up in the next 2 weeks because I'm counting on CeeDee Lamb to do big things for me. All right, so if we don't have any more news...
I got one more thing.
Okay.
Jaguars just named Trevor Lawrence Week 1 starter. No surprise there.
Yeah, I mean, it took them long enough to
Yeah.
say it finally, but that's kind of what everybody figured. It's the right move. As much as I love Minshew Mania and all of the theatrics he brings,
he had his chance. He did have his chance.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I think Trevor Lawrence is.
Yeah,
I mean, he's the number 1 draft pick. If you don't start him, why did you pick him in the first place?
well, he's the most pro-ready rookie quarterback since Andrew Luck.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Someone said the top. He's the 3rd best college quarterback after John Elway and Andrew Luck, which is some big shoes to fill. And I think if Andrew Luck had the offensive line he did when he retired at the beginning of his career, I think his career would have gone a lot different.
Yeah.
So hopefully Trevor Lawrence, is someone that can power through everything that the Jaguars have. And honestly, the Jaguars on offense aren't that bad. I would say. I think they have some good receivers.
Yeah,
James
they have a lot of weapons.
Yeah, they have.
So.
I think they're Visca Chenault is good. DJ Chark, I think, is really good. They have Marvin Jones now,
Marvin Jones.
so I think he's going to do pretty well. But I just don't. Obviously, I don't know how that defense is because from that 2017 defense was amazing, but they've lost a lot of players. Some players aren't living up to what they did in that year. So we'll see what happens. I don't think anyone thinks they're going to make the playoffs, but they're definitely not going to go 1-16, which is basically.
I've seen some things like
Yeah.
that. So. And I don't know how their offensive line is, to be honest. It wasn't the worst last year, but obviously it wasn't the best. They won 1 game. So.
The thing with last year, they were in a lot of games. They lost to the Packers by 3 in Green Bay, which is kind of
Minshew Mania. So.
Exactly. So they're definitely going to win some games. I mean, like I said, they're far from the worst team. I think the worst teams are the Lions and the Texans. Even with Deshaun Watson, because the Texans just have nothing, absolutely nothing. So they're going to win at least 2 games against the Texans for sure.
All right. So let's shift from news right into our draft recap. Any particular team we would like to start with for our teams in our league?
Like I said, we should start with your dad's team, Beast Larson, because he was one of my highest rated people, and I rated before ETN went down.
Right.
And he has James Robinson.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to upgrade my grade there. So all of the graphics you see here with the Beast Larson's fantasy grade, that's going to go up because of James Robinson's increased fantasy outlook to me.
Are there graphics up for his team right now?
No, there will be.
So his quarterback, he has Patrick Mahomes as quarterback, which is obviously good. Then he has Cook Carson as running back, Dalvin Cook, Chris Carson, Keenan Allen, and Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry, I don't think is a good pick, but Keenan Allen I think is great. Noah Fant tight end, James Robinson flex, Cardinals defense, and Harrison Buckert.
Yeah. So I rated Mahomes an A+, obviously. I'm sure you rated him a 5 in your scale as well.
Yeah, for the record, he has a grading scale. What I did is I rate each player on a 0 to 5 scale, and that's how I was able to figure out who won the draft. And I haven't upgraded it. I would honestly say the flex jumps to at least a 4, which would make him the number 1 team. Because he was already my 3rd team, and I think this James Robinson thing will make my 1st team.
Then at running back, Dalvin Cook, I gave him an A+ as well. I'm assuming
gave him
gave him a 5.
Yep.
Chris Carson, I gave him a B. Just based on whether or not he's going to stay healthy throughout the whole year and actually play every game, or at least 13 to 14 games fully, is why I don't have him at an A.
I gave him a 3 for that because I do think it's hard to put someone that's going to be the starter below a 3.
Right.
Except for unless you're like why would
the
ET,
Bills
or like ETN exactly because I just really think James Robinson would eat into his But yeah, the Bills is a good example. And now I would say Daryl Henderson. I probably will drop him down to a 2.
Right.
I had him at a 3, but let's keep going with his.
Keenan Allen, I gave him an A. He's going to get a lot of volume. And yeah, that's where I'm at with him.
I gave him a 4. I just worry that the Chargers are going to play smart and run the ball a lot. That's my only concern. But I do think if they're behind, Keenan Allen he's going to have weeks where he's going to get like 35 points. But I feel like he's going to have weeks where he's going to get like 7. So that's my only issue.
This is probably where we'll be more disparity-wise. I gave Jarvis Landry a B+. After what he did last season and that kind of continuity he built up with Baker, I feel like that's going to carry over into this year. So that's why
I only gave him a 2 because I just don't. Here's the thing. I know Baker Mayfield is obviously better without Odell Beckham on the field, but when he is on the field, he's still the number 1 target guy. And they are going to run the ball a lot. And the thing is, Baker Mayfield is kind of a guy that really spreads the ball out a lot.
Right.
So I don't like the pick. I mean, I don't like the fact that he's a starter. I don't really see a lot of better options on his bench, obviously,
right.
But I don't. This is the one pick that I'm not a huge fan of his.
He's definitely not a wide receiver 2 for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would say he's either a flex or even a bench player, but
yeah, but like you said, there's not really anybody else on his bench that he could plug in there because I mean, I would almost shift James Robinson up over Chris Carson right now.
Absolutely,
I agree, yeah.
So but then that opens up his flex to put Jarvis into the flex spot, but then he doesn't have anybody to put into that wide.
I mean, as long as they're both starting, it's not like the flex position gets less
exactly.
points. So
I guess we'll just have to see. Noah Fant, I gave him a B. He's obviously a very talented tight end. I just don't know how this Broncos offense is going to work. If they work like they have been when the starters are in for the preseason, there's something to be excited about. But we just kind of have to see.
I gave him a 3. I feel like that was being generous because I'm actually kind of a big fan. Noah Fant, I think he's a really talented guy. But I had him last year, and it was kind of frustrating, but I still believe in him. I still think he's really talented. So I gave him a 3. I really could have given him a 2, but I kind of gave the benefit of the doubt for that.
And I think this offense opens up a little more once they finally know who their quarterback is and they have everybody back. And they kind of have a direction of where they're going. It's something that I, as a Broncos fan, haven't seen for quite a few years, is the offense looking like they have a direction. Instead of just being all over the place, you don't kind of know who's going to do what, who's going to make what play. Now that I feel like they're on a path, at least, of going somewhere. Then we had talked about James Robinson. I originally gave him a C, just because of the volume that we heard that ETN was going to get, the fact that they might both be on the field, which doesn't necessarily mean touches and volume or anything like that. So I gave him a C. If I was to upgrade him right now, it'd be to a B+.
If I upgraded him based on where he got him, A+.
Yeah,
just
where he got him,
I'm pretty sure he wasn't even going to be his flex. I'm pretty sure he got him after that. I'm giving a 4, borderline 5, because he was really good last year, and I think this offense might be better. I'm gonna keep it at a 4, but like I said, it could be a 5. I think James Robinson without ETN there is going to be a stud.
Right. The Cardinals defense, they got the addition of J.J. Watt. They have a couple of playmakers, but we saw last year their defense still wasn't great. It was a lot of high-scoring games, which in fantasy, high-scoring games means your defense is giving up a lot of yardage, a lot of points, which means negative points for your defense. So I gave them a C. But we'll have to see. They made some additions. So
for defense and kicker, I'm only doing 1 to 3 just because it's not as important. And most got a 2, and this is another example. I'm giving him a 2 for this. I just think that the Cardinals defense could be really good this year with the addition of J.J. Watt. I think they could be a sack monster with him and almost like Chandler Jones. So I think there could be a good defense. I'm giving him a 2 for that.
All right. So overall, I give the Beast Larson a B+.
About kicker
3.87. Oh yeah, Harrison Buckert.
I gave him a 3. I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Harrison Buckert is probably one of the best kickers. I wouldn't enjoy having the quarterback and the kicker on the same team, which is what he does. But I mean, if you're gonna have it on the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, if say your quarterback scores a touchdown, your kicker's gonna get points. If your quarterback drives the team down the field and you have to kick a field goal, get your kicker's points. So I feel like stacking your kicker with any offensive player isn't a terrible deal. And the Chiefs are going to score a lot of points. So obviously their kicker is going to be worth quite a bit. So yeah, a B+, 3.87 on a scale of 1 to 5 for me, average.
I gave him 31 points, which I initially had him at 29. I upgraded him to 31 because of the James Robinson thing, which makes him tied for the best draft.
Gotcha. Overall grade for you there?
I'll give him a A- because just with Patrick Mahomes and Dalvin Cook kind of as your top 2 picks, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe he got him in the 2nd or 3rd round, Patrick Mahomes, which it's good to have Patrick Mahomes. It does show in the Jarvis Landry wide receiver that picking him high will drop your other players a little bit. Right. But other than that, I mean, I think he has a solid team. I think he's got a lot of upside. I'm not sure how the floor of his team is, but he's got, outside of Cook and Mahomes, but I do think Carson could be really good. Keenan Allen could be amazing. Jarvis Landry could be good, and so can Noah Fant. So we'll see. I think he's got a good team.
Chris Carson could be an A easily if he plays every game. You know, he's one of those players. Who would we like to talk about next? Right under him, I have Team Hill.
All right, we'll do that. Team Hill.
Him. So he's got Josh Allen, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, TJ Hawkinson, Michael Gallup, the Broncos defense, and Jason Saunders, the Miami Dolphins kicker.
Also, we're not talking about bench players quite.
Yeah.
That's not
we have a fairly large bench for our teams.
Most of them are just handcuffs.
Yeah, so we're just going to stick to who's going to be starting most of the season for these people. So we'll start off with Josh Allen. Gave him an A+ after what he did last season. He still has Stephon Diggs there. I think he's still continuing to get better as well, so I think he's still upper echelon.
Yeah, I gave him a 5 for that. I wouldn't give him an A+ for the pick, though, because he got him in the 3rd round. That's pretty high.
Still reaching.
As far as the pick goes, I give it like a B, B-, but I'm just rating based off the players. I gave him a 5 for Josh
Allen. So Alvin Kamara, I didn't give him an A+. I gave him an A because he still is Alvin Kamara, but I've never been super high on Alvin Kamara. But he is a very talented player.
I've been saying that I think Alvin Kamara is a bust potential, but I still gave him a 5 because he's going to have such a high volume. He probably will have a combination of catches and carries the highest in the league. I understand Latavius Murray is there, but they just have no one else on offense. Well, I just don't know how productive it's going to go.
I heard something earlier this morning. It's not anything official. It's just from other sources talking about fantasy football. But Latavius Murray might be running back 3 on that team. I'm not sure who the running back is under him, but from what coaches are saying and things happening in practice, there's another guy that is moving kind of up into that second running back spot. So either way, it doesn't really affect Alvin Kamara all that much for the amount of volume and where he gets his volume, in my opinion. We've got Joe Mixon, another guy that I'm not super high on, but he is very talented as well. I gave him a B based on what he did last year. He was hurt a little bit, but then when he was in, he wasn't great. And I'm going to say he doesn't involve himself very much in the passing game. Around 30 to 40 catches the past couple years, and maybe only a couple of touchdowns tossed in there. So I gave him a B.
I gave him a 4 because I think he's just a little better than Chris. I think he's a little better version of Chris Carson, where he's going to be the running back. I don't see anyone taking anything away from him. Here's the thing. I think he's going to have a lot of touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to have a lot of yards, but I think if they're within the 5, they're going to hand the ball off to him. And we saw that last year. They didn't really pass the ball a lot in the red zone. Right. And I think he may not get a lot of yards, but he's going to get a lot of touchdowns. So I gave him a 4.
And I think this offense is going to be a lot more pass-heavy this year. They'll have Joe Burrow, hopefully the whole season, barring any injuries. They have T. Higgins, who proved himself as a really good receiver last year. Tyler Boyd, who has continued to prove himself as a really good receiver. Jamar Chase, who, whenever he actually is starting to play, don't know if he's going to get suspended, don't know where that's going, but with all 3 of those receivers in, I think that they're going to be fairly pass-heavy, which will cut into Joe Mixon.
I had to look up the tight end. It's C.J. Uzama.
Interesting.
I didn't even know that who the tight end was, honestly.
You'd like to see them trade for somebody that
Yeah.
could catch the football.
Maybe they'll draft one next year.
Maybe. DJ Moore, another guy that I am not high on at all. We just talked about him in news. I gave him a C because if they do throw the ball down the field, he's going to be the guy could have big plays for you.
Yeah, I gave DJ Moore 2. Here's the thing about a lot of the guys that I tend to not like. They always have really good week ones, but then they kind of fade to the beginning of the season. So he is playing the Jets week 1, so he may have a big week 1, may get a big pass down the field. But I agree. I just don't see the targets to make him a wide receiver 1 or 2. It's just not going to be there.
Right. Cortland Sutton. I kind of have him on the same level as Noah Fant. I gave him a B as well. I don't know where the Broncos offense is going, but with everybody in the passing game, I feel like is going to upgrade this year. And Cortland Sutton, he's their number 1 guy if he is in. So, big body, big target, a lot of talent, so I gave him a B.
So I actually changed this, I initially had him at 2. I actually dropped to 1 because I think Judy's going to be the number 1 guy of that team. Yeah. I think he's very talented, and he is coming off Cortland Sutton's coming off an ACL injury. Was it ACL injury?
I believe so, yes.
And I just think Noah Fant's going to be the number 2, and I just don't see the production from him. That's a hot take of mine. I will admit that. If you disagree with me, I'm not going to argue on that, but I gave him a 1. I just don't think Cortland Sutton's going to have a good year.
You're absolutely crazy. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's fine. I mean,
I agree. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I just see him as a big body, and I feel like red zone targets will be there. I don't feel like Judy's going to get red zone targets, so those will be split, I believe, between Fant and Sutton. A tight end, you like him. TJ Hawkinson. I give him a B. I think he's really good. I think he's probably going to be a top 5 tight end this year. But you take away Matt Stafford, who loves throwing the ball to the tight end, and who's their quarterback now? Jared Goff. Jared Goff does not like to throw the ball to the tight end. Even though Hawkinson is their main guy, I haven't seen the tight end utilized well by Jared Goff.
Yeah. Here's my defense for T.J. Hawkinson. Jared Goff was a complete product of Sean McVay. Let's be honest. Okay. I'm pretty sure he was. He's gonna have basically, I wouldn't say no coaching, but he's not gonna be as designed as Sean McVay. He's gonna be a little more free, do what you want kind of guy, and he's gonna pick a receiver. And there is no receiver that's good on this team. Kenny Galladay is gone. Marvin Jones is gone. T.J. Hawkinson is going to clearly be the number 1. And they're going to be behind a lot of games. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I just think his targets are going to be so massive. He may not have a lot of catches compared to the targets, but I just think he's going to have so many targets. I gave him a 4 for this pick just because I can't really put him and Kelsey in the same stand because that's a little crazy. But, yeah, I gave T.J. Hawkinson a 4 because I just think his targets are going to be so high.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say T.J. Hawkinson, he's one of those guys that's, a wide receiver in a tight end's body, like a Jimmy Graham in his New Orleans days or Travis Kelce now. So, and, is he their number 1 receiver? I would say he is.
I honestly have no idea who their receivers are.
Yeah,
if we're being completely honest, we'll have Jacob look that up. But... yeah, I still gave him a B. I think he's still, like I said, going to be a top 5 tight end guy.
So their receivers are Tyra Williams, the guy that was on the Chargers a couple years ago. They have Brashad Perriman, who is just
he's
top
a
round.
Jets product.
He's a top round, and the best name, Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I've never heard before, but that's
he's a rookie this year.
Yeah, he was good at USC.
He's a guy that Lions fans are kind of excited about, so... we'll have to see, but again,
it's going to be T.J. Hawkinson. Yeah. T.J. Hawkinson's way better than all those guys. Tyra Williams hasn't even played in a couple years, I'm pretty sure. He did have 1 year where he had 10 touchdowns, though, but that was back in 2016.
And we do have to take into account, too, that DeAndre Swift is a pass-catching back. He will be able to take up some of those targets as well. But yeah, T.J. Hawkinson, not a bad tight end to have. And I can't say anything about tight ends. Mine are in shambles. Flex player, Michael Gallup.
You changed it to Tyler Boyd, which I think is better.
To Tyler Boyd? Yeah. Okay, that is much better because I gave Michael Gallup a D.
I gave him a 1, yeah.
Yeah, he's... Yeah.
There's too much... Okay, here's the thing. There's just too much going on in Dallas's offense.
Right.
And I wouldn't even be surprised, just because you have 2 great wide receivers, I wouldn't even be surprised if Blake Jarwin takes more targets than Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup is going to have 3 or 4 weeks where he's going to have 15 points and it's all be from one plate. Because he's going to get a 1 or 2 or 3 big touchdowns in the year. But other than that, he's not going to do much.
Well, and when he had opportunities last year, he squandered them. He didn't make the most of what he got last year. So the fact that Tyler Boyd is now in that spot, I like that much better. I would move Tyler Boyd into the wide receiver 1 or 2, if I'm being honest. That I see Tyler Boyd as
on this team.
Yeah.
I gave Tyler... I think Tyler Boyd is probably the best receiver he has, but I still gave him a 2 just because I think he's going to end up being the 3 because Joe Burrow picked T. Higgins last year more than Tyler Boyd. Yeah. And I guarantee you he's going to pick Jamar Chase, at least over Tyler Boyd, because he loves Jamar Chase. So I mean, if Jamar Chase is suspended, that obviously puts his stock up a little bit. But I'm just going to... Let's just say he's not. I'm giving Tyler Boyd only a 2 points.
Well, and Tyler Boyd's going to be in the slot, which is where I believe he should be in offense because he is that kind of receiver. So I think he'll get better matchups defensively in the slot, and he'll be able to be quicker and move and, get himself open, is why I still think Tyler Boyd is relevant for that position. The defense, the Broncos. I like the Broncos defense this year. I'm a Broncos fan, I don't want to sound like a homer there, but I gave them a B. From what I've seen this preseason, they've had most of their starters out there quite a few times. Patrick Surtain looks like an absolute animal. I'm very excited about him, so I think they're going to be a decent defense this year.
I don't really have anything to say about their defense and kicker. I just gave them a 2. Like I said, there's very few times I actually have a problem because we have no idea really. Right. I agree. I think the Broncos defense is going to be solid.
And then Jason Sanders, gave him a B as well. He was really good last year. He was one of the top kickers every week. In our league, the way kickers score so that they're still relevant, he was scoring about 18 points a week last year. Just because they get into some sort of field goal range and he'd kick a field goal. So he's got a lot of value that way, especially because 3-point field goals are worth more in fantasy than extra points. Mm-hmm. So I think he's got a good value there. Mm-hmm. Overall, I gave him a C+, probably bump him up a bit because of Tyler Boyd being in the flex, but not too much. So I still gave him a C+, 3.4. 4 out of 5 for my...
He has 27 points for me. For the record, Beast Larson has 31. So he ended up being tied for 9th out of 12. And I kind of looked... Teams that had the same amount of points just kind of looked, and I actually put him to 10th. So he's the 10th ranked team in my opinion.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll give him a C+. I like Josh Allen and Kamara together, but that wide receiver situation is...
Yeah, everything below those first 2 players, it's a maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work. But yeah. All right, so let's move on to the defending champion of this league, the Magic Skull Bus.
Magic Skull Bus. That's
we'll have to see. Quarterback situation for him.
Let me pull up their team first. I remember I have their ratings here. Wait, where's the Magic Skull Bus? Here we go.
So we'll start off with Matt Ryan as his starting quarterback. And then he's got David Montgomery, Daryl Henderson, we'll see, Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs, Irv Smith Jr., Chris Godwin, the Saints, and Jason Myers. Matt Ryan, I gave him a D.
I am changing the Daryl Henderson, so just let me update my numbers on him.
We will have to see. So Matt Ryan is a guy that he can get you a lot of points in garbage time when his team is losing and they just have to air it out and he gets 350 yards passing.
Right.
But...
Actually, I'll get to this in a moment, but I just changed Hill to 9th. Team Hill that we just talked about, and I'll get to that in a moment. So,
okay. So, yeah, I gave Matt Ryan a D.
I think the best thing going for him is the Falcons could be playing behind a lot.
And he's got 2 big guys to throw the ball to. So.
Yeah, I give him a 3 because I think it's not a bad pick. I would not give him a D considering he got him very late. And I remember when we talked last week, you said he's kind of the odd man out in the situation, which I agree with. I think there are other quarterbacks better. But the fact that he got him as late as he did, I don't think it's that bad of a pick. Now, if I'm just ranking the quarterback, I give him a 3.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at every other team's quarterback, he's going to lose that matchup probably every week. Besides a few other weeks, you know what I mean?
Who does Frenchie have? Because I gave him a 2. I don't remember. I'll look it up. You keep talking about this.
So, yeah, Matt Ryan, I gave him a pretty low grade there. David Montgomery, he's a running back I wanted. Went off the board before I could get him. I gave him an A. We saw what he did at the end of last year once he was fully healthy and wasn't being hindered by the preseason injury that kind of messed up most of his season. And he's an animal. So if the Bears are in games, David Montgomery is going to be somebody that is getting a lot of volume.
I gave him a 4 for that pick. I like that pick a lot. As a Bears fan, they run the ball a lot, and as sad as it is, I don't really know how much I'm going to trust Tariq Cohen to be good after that injury. So, but I really enjoy. I gave him a 4. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, and he involved himself in the passing game as well a little bit last year. So hopefully we'll see an uptick in that as well. Daryl Henderson, gave him a B. He's somebody I see the floor being 10 just based on getting carries and the ceiling being 15. So I guess B is a pretty generous grade for him, but you know, I think he's still decent.
I initially gave him a 3, dropping down to a 2 after the Sony Michel thing. Like I said, everyone that I listen to is like, draft Daryl Henderson. I'm like, I just don't know. I just don't know how good he's gonna be. He's just so underwhelming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's worth mentioning that he does have Damian Harris on his bench with the Sony Michel trade. Harris could be getting more carries.
Yeah, but if Cam Newton continues to be the quarterback, goal line work is going to go to Cam Newton.
Yeah.
We saw that last year. And Damian Harris, I don't think, is going to get enough volume to not score touchdowns.
When we start talking about the Patriots backfield.
Because he's on his bench, you know. But he's somebody maybe you could plug in. But I wouldn't. His wide receivers...
Stud wide receiver.
Fantastic. He's got Devontae Adams, probably the top wide receiver in the league, and Stephon Diggs. I gave both of them an A+. You're not going to have any problems with those two as long as they are healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I did say that I don't think Diggs is going to be as good, so I gave Adams a 5 and Diggs a 4, just because Diggs has shown not to be very good when he's coming off, or at least injured at the beginning of the season. Grant, that was in Minnesota. It might be a little different situation. I'm rooting for Diggs. After the Bears, I'm rooting for the Bills to win the Super Bowl because I'm a big fan of Josh Allen. I'd be happy for Mr. Trubisky to get a ring. That'd be cool as a backup. But yeah. Here's the thing. I'm rooting for him, but I just be cautious about the injury. I'm gonna give him a 4. So I have overall 9, which is a pretty good score for wide receiver.
Yeah. A guy that Ben likes, Irv Smith Jr. at tight end. I gave him a C. Just you've got Justin Jefferson, who's going to eat up most of the targets. Then you have Adam Thielen, who probably is going to get most of the red zone targets. And Irv Smith is just kind of sprinkled in there, so I gave him a C.
I'll let you talk about your boy.
He's a red zone threat, and I think that's the big part is I think he's going to be a big target when it comes to, passes at the 5-10 yard line. So that's why I like him, and like I said last week, with Kyle Rudolph gone, Irv Smith is going to be getting more catches, more reps.
Yeah, I gave him a 2 just because the number 3 receiver with Kirk Cousins is not a good recipe. So he could be good. He could get just a lot of touchdowns, but I just think the red zone is going to go to Adam Thielen more. Yeah. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Yeah, I gave him a 2 though.
I think he's going to be touchdown dependent because I don't see him getting an overt amount of targets, but we'll have to see. And then stacking onto his good wide receivers in the flex position, he has Chris Godwin, who I think is value-wise, not the best in Tampa Bay, but he is their best receiver. So I gave him a B there.
I gave him a 3. I think obviously Chris Godwin talent-wise is top 10 receiver, but the Buccaneers have so many receivers, so many good receivers. So I gave I gave a lot of 3s to the Buccaneers players just because they all could be good. Tom Brady can only throw to so many people. So.
Yeah.
And you also got Scotty Miller that's probably going to eat up some targets as well. So.
Yeah, I was going to go somewhere with that, and then it just slipped my mind. So I guess we'll move on to the defense. The Saints defense, I gave them a C. I don't know how they're going to be.
I dropped the Saints from a 2 to a 1. I worry, with Jameis being quarterback, interceptions. There might be times where they get a lot of breaks because Jameis Winston is really good, and then he throws interceptions, and all of a sudden they're on the field again. So I gave him a 1. I'm not a huge fan of that pick. So.
And they also lost Trey Hendrickson, who led the team in sacks and was, I believe he might have been an All-Pro last year, but I could be wrong. But it's a big loss.
Defensive back-wise, they have Marshawn Lattimore, and then besides that,
Cam Jordan.
Yeah, he's a decent pass rusher too, but a couple of playmakers on one defense isn't going to make up for being on the field all the time.
I'm not high on the Saints defenses here.
And then Jason Myers, the Seattle kicker, I gave him an A. Kind of rank him just a little over Jason Sanders because the Seahawks, I believe, will score more than the Dolphins. And it's a good offense. So
yeah, I gave him a 2 just because I don't really have opinion. I do worry though that the Seahawks might be really good in the red zone. Russell Wilson's shown history of being really good in the red zone, so he may be getting a lot of extra points, but I don't see the field goal upside that some of the other kickers have. But I still gave him a 2. Not enough to bring him down to 1.
Gotcha.
So overall, I gave him. The reason I put Hill up to 9 is I dropped Skull down to 10 because of the Daryl Henderson and reevaluating the Saints situation. So I actually had him about 26 points. So he's right now 10th place for me.
All right. I gave him a B overall, a 3.61 out of 5. Hopefully for him, Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams carry that.
I may be a little too harsh on Stephon Diggs, so he would have 27, but it wouldn't affect his positioning right here for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'll give him a B+. I just think that duo of Adams and Diggs is very good.
And David Montgomery, I think, is also going to be one of those, dare I say, top 10 running backs this season. So, 3 good centerpieces for that team. Then we've got Team Mama Bear.
Mama Bear.
That'd be my mom. So before we dive into her entire team, I would just like to make it known that her number 1 pick
was Travis
Kelce.
Well, and that's fine, but the fact is she had the 2nd pick, so she picked Travis Kelce over Dalvin
number 2. Which I figured that'd be where she went.
Unless Dalvin Cook gets hurt, I don't know how I feel about that pick.
I figured she might go there because she had Kelce last year and he was the breadwinner for the team. But let's see how the rest of her team fell into place. She got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. I believe that's good.
Yeah, I gave Aaron Rodgers a 4. I do think it was a mistake to pick him over Russell Wilson because I think Russell Wilson has more running threats. But I could be wrong about that. I gave Aaron Rodgers a 4, not in the same level as Allen or Mahomes, just because of the rushing.
I went the same direction there. I gave him an A instead of an A+, where I would give Mahomes and Allen that. Najee Harris as her running back 1. I like it. I like Najee Harris. He's somebody that I would put at my running back 1 if I had him as well. I gave him a B. I don't know exactly how the Steelers' offense is going to operate. They have a lot of passing weapons, but Najee Harris, we've seen him through the preseason be really good.
Well, in our ESPN rankings, he was ranked like 14th or something. There's a reason he fell all the way back down to 2 again because I gave him a 3. I think he was weighted way too highly considering the Steelers' offensive line situation. He has a ton of upside. I'm not going to take that away from him. But he has a very low floor because he could just be terrible. He could be like a worse version than Barkley where they just stack where the offensive line is just bad that he doesn't do anything. So I gave him a 3 for that pick.
Yeah. At running back 2, this is where it got a little dicey because of the number 2 pick of Travis Kelce. She got Zach Moss. I gave him a D. First of all, the Bills are a team who pass it a lot. Josh Allen takes up most of the running game. And then you split the rest of that between Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Zach Moss being the number 2 running back behind Singletary. But there's been talks that he is liked more than Devin Singletary by the coaching staff. So he might move into the running back 1 for them, but still, even Devin Singletary last year didn't get a lot of fantasy production being their top running back. So
I gave Zach Moss a 1. I believe this is the lowest starting percentage on here of any player we've talked about so far. Only a 4% starting percentage, and not surprising. Like you hit on all the points. Don't need to repeat it.
Yeah.
One point for me in that regard.
Gotcha. At wide receiver 1, she's got A.J. Brown. Because of what the Titans' offense is, run first with Derrick Henry. They just got Julio. I gave him a B+. I think he's still great. I think he's still the wide receiver 1. Not super high on Julio. But Julio could be his equal in this offense, especially the way they run it. So I gave him a B+. Just where I'm at with him.
I'll come back. I want to talk about the receivers together, but come back to me. Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, the thing that I steered away from A.J. Brown in this draft because, I mean, to be honest, I don't even know if he's the number 1 receiver on this team. I still think Julio, I mean, obviously people are pegging A.J. Brown as the number 1, but Julio's still Julio. He can show up and, obviously injuries worry me for Julio, but I still think A.J. Brown's going to have a great year, but I don't know if he's a wide receiver 1.
Okay. Talk about Brandon Ayuk, and then I'll talk about both receivers.
So Brandon Ayuk is wide receiver 2. I gave him a B. I really like Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a player who's going to break out this season. He had a really good rookie year. They used him a lot in a lot of different ways, which just increases volume for him. But I gave him a B because Deebo Samuel is there. I personally like Deebo better. And then they have George Kittle, Raheem Mostert, all pass-catching options, all targets that will also go away from Brandon Ayuk. But Brandon Ayuk could make himself the top guy. So I gave him a B.
So here's why I want to talk the receivers together, because I was really close with A.J. Brown between a 3 and a 4. You hit all the points. I don't like the Julio Jones thing for A.J. Brown. I like it for the Titans, but not A.J. Brown. So I gave him like a 3.5, and then Brandon Ayuk I gave like a 2.5 because I'm really close between 2 and 3. I think he has a lot of upside, but I don't really like his floor. So I combined them and gave her a 6 total on wide receiver.
All right.
Which I'm not a huge fan for a wide receiver situation. If it was mine, I wouldn't be too happy about it.
I would be all right with it, especially with who she has in the flex, and me being high on Brandon Ayuk, but we'll get to that in a minute. Tight end, we talked about him already. Travis Kelce, A+, obviously the top tight end in the league. And if she gets 20 to 25 points out of him and then solid production out of everybody else that's not a breakout, she has a decent amount there, and Travis Kelce could make up for Zach Moss as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 5. No,
yeah.
End of story.
All right, so in the flex, she has T. Higgins, which I also like. We kind of talked about Tyler Boyd earlier. We talked about the whole situation of the receiving core in Cincinnati. But T. Higgins, he's an alpha. He goes out and demands targets because he's like, hey, I got open, give me the ball. Hey, I'm open again, give me the ball. He goes out and demands targets. He's really a physical guy. I gave him a B, and I think he's going to continue to do what he did last year.
Yeah, I gave him a 3. I had him at 2, but because of the whole Jamar Chase thing, I upgraded him to a 3. Yep, he hit all the points.
All right. The Buccaneers defense, I gave her an A+ here because for me, it's the Rams, the Buccaneers, and the Washington football team. All of their defenses are the best defenses in the league. They're going to score you a lot of points, get turnovers, hold teams to not a lot of points. So I gave her an A+ there.
See, I have an interesting... I actually gave her a 2 instead of a 3 just because I really feel like last year the Buccaneers were in a lot of high-scoring games, and I think just teams and quarterbacks are just a lot more amped to play Tom Brady so that they end up doing better on offense. It's kind of a weird thing, but it's like a psychological thing with the Buccaneers where teams just are a lot more amped to play them. So that's why I gave him a 2. I just think there's going to be some weeks where the scores are going to be like 40 to 45 or whatever, something like that with the Buccaneers.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And then Brandon McManus as her kicker, I gave him a B. If you watched the Broncos last year, McManus scored a majority of their points. And if they score, 17 to 20 points, that's, 3-4 field goals for McManus. Yeah. So a lot of value there at kicker.
No real comment. I gave her a 2.
So overall, I gave her a B, 3.77. She's kind of in the middle there for me.
I gave her 26 points, and I have her ranked 11th just because Zach Moss and her starting lineup is not good, and her wide receiver situation is rough.
Yeah.
Especially, and also, she picked Mac Jones very early for some reason.
Yeah. And
I know it's a bench player, but you could have gotten a better, like a candy cap.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a chance that Mac could start at any point this season.
And if you're watching this, Mrs. Larson, this is all just based on who you picked. I don't know. This is all like, I don't have anything against anybody. It's just based on who they picked. Okay.
Yeah, I'll give her a C-. The running back situation is a big question mark for me, and same thing Jacob said. I don't know much. I don't know if her wide receivers are that great.
Okay.
All right, who's next?
Team Breezes. This is the little brother of mine. He was the top overall pick. He got the 101, which he did not squander. Thank goodness. So
he picked Christian McCaffrey.
At quarterback, he has Lamar Jackson. Then he has Christian McCaffrey, Phillip Lindsay, Adam Thielen, Jamar Chase, George Kittle, Antonio Brown, the Rams defense, and Young Ho Koo. Lamar Jackson, as much as I love to hate Lamar Jackson as a fantasy quarterback, he's still a good option. I gave him an A there.
Yeah, I gave him 5 because I actually was listening to a podcast last week. Apparently, Lamar Jackson in the last 2 years has not had a game below 16 points, which is
that's a good floor.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I said, he's bound for an ACL injury by the way he plays. His cuts are the most insane thing I've ever seen, almost as good as LaShawn McCoy. But if he's on the field 17 weeks, he's going to be. There's no way he's not going to be top 5 quarterback. Right. There's no way. I just do worry about his injury, but I'm just going to give him a 5.
Sitting here talking about a Lamar Jackson injury, he also has Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson on his bench, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Trevor Lawrence won
two rookie quarterbacks that he could take a flyer on in case Jackson gets hurt or during the bye week. So, not terrible options, but we'll have to see how both those guys play. Running back one, he has Christian McCaffrey, A+.
Do we even need to talk about this? Yeah. 5 points for me. So,
good job taking who you were supposed to at the very first pick.
Let's just go to Phillip Lindsay.
But then, so Phillip Lindsay has his running back 2. I gave it a D. It's one that could change, but Phillip Lindsay, as of right now, is not the starter on a bad offense, and you don't know where it's going. He, at most, could upgrade to a C for me at some point in the year. But as a running back, too, it's tough.
I gave him a 1. You know how I feel about the Houston Texans this year. His start percentage is 1.7 in ESPN. Yeah, I can't even give him a 2. It's just not a good pick. Even if he is the starter, I just don't see any value from him. Unless he just gets like 10 catches for 50 yards, something like that. Because the Tyrod. Well, that's the thing. Tyrod Taylor being quarterback is also worse for him because he runs the ball a lot. So yeah, if you're listening, get rid of Phillip Lindsay. Change your running back. Find another running back on the market if you can.
And who's on his bench?
Sony Michel and Rashad Penny.
Well, so Sony Michel getting traded to the Rams. Maybe that's...
Sony Michel is way too touchdown dependent, though. That's my thing.
Well, if he's on the field, it's a little better than Phillip Lindsay. At wide receiver, he has Adam Thielen. I gave him a B+ there just because Adam Thielen catches touchdowns. But are we at the point for Adam Thielen that he is touchdown dependent?
I would say no. I mean, last year, here's the thing. Justin Jefferson's number 1. They're going to run the ball a lot, but I just think that he's really good. He still almost had 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
And he only had about 10 or so less catches than Justin Jefferson, and especially in a PPR league. I don't think he's touchdown dependent. Yeah, he's touchdown dependent if you want to get a big week out of him, but I think he can have if you have a week that's like 6 catches for 76 yards, you're okay with that, especially if you have Christian McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson.
Right. You saw last season, at some points in games, he'd get 5 targets in a row. Mm-hmm. So if he at least converts that into 3 catches for 30, 50 yards, you get 8 to 9 points.
Plus, I don't know what the situation was last year, but I assume he got the number one cornerback, and this year he probably won't.
Right.
So that might help him a lot.
Yeah. So not a bad value.
I gave him a 3.
Yeah. Jamar Chase, we're just kind of beating a dead horse with the Bengals receiver, so I'm just going to give him a B there.
I gave him a 3. I'm not going to drop down yet because he was one of my highest players going in. Things have dropped him just a little bit, but I don't want to overreact too much, so I still give him a 3.
Yeah, and for me, it's just there's 3 receivers to catch the football.
What do you have to say?
He's got a higher ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. He has a high ceiling, and that's why I would put him in a starting lineup, maybe as a flex, but not as a wide receiver 2 quite yet.
Which, honestly, I'm going to hop down to his flex. Antonio Brown. I really like Antonio Brown. I think he's the most valuable fantasy player for his cost and where he's at for the Buccaneers. And honestly, if I were to set, 2 wide receivers every week, I think Antonio Brown isn't a bad wide receiver 2, unless we see something else from Jamar Chase. I would rather have Jamar Chase be the interchangeable one.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter where you put him. I gave Antonio Brown also 3, so I have 3 wide receivers as a 3. Again, I think he's going to be closer to Godwin and Evans that people think.
Yeah.
Because towards the end of last year, Antonio Brown seemed to be the number 1, actually.
Yeah, Brady really liked him towards the end of the year.
We'll see what happens. Again, I would not want to have anyone in that Bucs offense except for maybe Tom Brady, obviously.
Right.
So we'll see what happens.
And for his tight end, he managed to get George Kittle as well, which I also gave an A+. That one's dependent on health, but Kittle's a stud as well.
I agree he's a stud, but like I've said before, as a fantasy player, I have to give him a 4. I couldn't quite give him a 5 just because they use him as a blocker so much, and that really stops his fantasy value for me. I do think he's the number 1 receiver. He'll probably finish as 3 or 4 tight end, but I just think it's Kelsey and then everyone else.
Right.
In my opinion.
I mean, the thing that stuck with me from last year is he had a game with 15 catches. That is insane.
There's going to be some games where he has like 1 catch because they run the ball so well. If that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. But then down at his defense, he's got the Rams, who again I said is in that top 3 of any of those defenses could be the number 1 defense. So I gave him an A+ there as well.
I gave him a 3, which is rare for me not to give a defense a 2, just because I think the combination of Aaron Donald getting sacks and Jalen Ramsey is a great fantasy combination. Yeah. Plus, they play the Bears week 1, which will probably be bad. Was probably good for the Rams defense.
Right. And then Younghoe Koo, I gave him a B. Regardless of what you think about the offense for Atlanta and them as a team winning. Young Hoku goes out there, kicks his field goals, calls it a day, says thanks for my check, and heads out the door.
He was a Pro Bowl kicker last year.
Yeah, I mean,
so
he's...
I gave him a 2. I only gave a 3s to Buckert and Tucker.
Okay. So overall, I gave him a B+, 3.94 out of 5, because of Jackson, McCaffrey, Kittle, and the Rams defense.
Yeah, he ended up with 28 points for me. There was 4 other teams that had 28 points. We haven't got to that. But I think out of the people that had that, I just looked, and I think he has the best team of those. So he ended up with the 4th place ranking for me of 12.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, I'll give him a B. I think this is a good team.
I agree. If he fixes the Philip Lindsay situation, then he'd be a great team.
Yeah, he turns into a real scary team if he has
Problem
something
is
better at running
not
back.
with 12 people in our league and a lot of bench players we have. It's hard to find another running back on the board.
Right. Something he might have to try to figure out a trade.
Yeah.
So we will move on to...
He also has the Steelers defense on bench. So he's the Rams and the Steelers defense, which is very interesting. That's 2 of the top defenses. So.
Yeah, and you could definitely use those interchangeably as
a trade bait, yeah.
As that, or play it matchup based if the Rams are playing a really good offense and the Steelers aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Just easily interchange them.
All right.
We're gonna move on to you now.
Me.
Yes.
Now, before we get into this, just remember I picked players that I personally like, so my ratings will be just a little bit higher on average for me.
He didn't fairly grade himself.
Well, the thing is, I'm like high on a lot of these players. Which is why I picked them. So.
Right, and I'm sure once we get down to my team, I'll have some.
Yeah.
Probably a little higher than what you would think or Ben would think.
Yeah.
So at quarterback, you got Joe Burrow. I gave him a B. We saw good things out of him last year, but from what you hear out of camp, it feels like it's going to be a slow start. Just him getting comfortable behind the offensive line, not having to worry about, oh my God, am I going to get hit this play? Oh, is my knee going to be okay? Like a couple of weeks, I think he'll turn into something good, and that receiving core.
Yeah, I gave him a 3. I want to give him a 4, but I did hesitate. I do hear that his work ethic is incredible. Like I heard he comes in and he comes up with different plays that he's going to do when he's more healthy. So I gave him a 3. I think he has the potential to be a 4. I don't think he's going to be a 5. That's like Lamar Jackson, Mahomes territory. But I gave him a 3 just because of the slow start. I think by the end of the season he might be a 4 though.
Well, and for him to get up there, he'd have to have a real breakout season, end up top 5, and the Bengals make the playoffs, which that's a tough division to do that in.
Yeah.
At running back, you have Saquon Barkley. I gave him an A. I'm not super high on Saquon, but he is Saquon. He is an athlete. He is really good. Makes up most of the Giants' offense. So I still give him an A there.
I gave myself a 5 because he was my number 3 running back after McCaffrey and Cook, and I was so excited that he dropped to me because I had picked number 8. And the thing with Barkley that I've been saying is the Giants are a way better team now than they were at the beginning of last year, especially because not only just Kenny Galladay, but that team just got a lot better. They started out 0-5 and they ended up 7-9,
right.
And they beat the Seahawks towards the end of the year. So that team is not. Or did they end up 6? No, they ended up 6-10. But still, 0-5 to 6-10 is pretty solid. That's 6-5 towards the last 11 games.
Right. Well, so, and I said a lot last year because they were in a lot of games. Mm-hmm. They were one Saquon Barkley play away from winning those games.
And look what Barkley did his rookie year. He was a stud, and everyone's just forgetting about that because the last 2 years have been rough.
Yeah. A lot of injuries, which is another thing that kind of makes me iffy about.
Plus, they have a new coach, maybe, or not a new coach, but basically he had 2 games at Barkley last year.
Right,
so maybe, hopefully they get him into open space because he's so much better at open space than he is just pounding right up the middle. Right. So we'll see what happens.
So your next player, I gave him a B, but where you picked him up, I really like him as well. The draft grade from where you got him and what he is, I'd give you an A there. But I gave him
Mike
a B
Davis,
to Mike
we're talking
Davis.
about.
Yes. He's honestly the only running back in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the workhorse. We saw what he did last year in Carolina without Christian McCaffrey being there, and he was a stud. Now he is going to be the guy for the Falcons. I really like that pick. but I still give him a B because I just don't trust the Atlanta offense.
Yeah, I gave him a 3, obviously. I'm not going to give him a 4 because I picked him 5th overall, which I thought was... my goal was to pick him 5th. Right. I know you were saying, like, I hope this guy falls back to me. I'm like, I think you're talking about this guy, and he's not because I'm picking him now. But, yeah, I gave him a 3. I think he could be solid. Like I said, I don't even know who the backups are. And, like you said, he was good last year. He was, I think, a top 10 running back because McCaffrey's almost there.
And, yeah, he was somebody I was hoping to fall to me at that specific spot, too. I think you picked him right before because we were right next to each other in the draft, so he sniped me a few times. At wide receiver 1, you have DK Metcalf. I gave him an A+. He's got big playability. Really broke out last season. Went from being the straight line, I can't run routes, to such a dynamic player. And obviously made himself the top receiver for that team. So I gave him an A+.
Yeah, I gave myself a 5. Like I said, I'm so high on Metcalf because everyone forgets this is only his 3rd year. Yeah. And he's already insane. And the combination of his speed and Russell Wilson being the best deep ball quarterback, at least in terms of accuracy. Obviously Mahomes can throw it farther, but Russell Wilson's deep ball is perfect.
Yeah, he can put it
he's gonna have at least 5 40+ yard touchdowns, I would say, in the year.
Which in our league is very good because that equals over 15 points.
And plus Tyler Lockett's getting older, so maybe he'll start throwing to Metcalf more. I just think Metcalf has the potential to be wide receiver 1. Yeah. And that is definitely a possibility.
For sure. Then you have Terry McLaurin as your wide receiver 2. I gave you an A there. He's obviously going to be the number 1 guy. I like him. An Ohio State guy. Fantastic. I mean, he's a good quarterback away from being in that top 10 wide receiver conversation.
And maybe Fitzpatrick isn't the good quarterback, but he's the right quarterback because he just throws the ball a lot. Yeah, I gave myself a 4. I am shocked he fell to me because every mock draft I got him 3rd, which was overall. So I had 8, and they came back and they came all the way back to me for number 8. Who did you pick? Who'd you pick 3rd then? Because I thought you were going to take McLaurin.
CeeDee Lamb.
Oh, yeah, you love CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah.
And so when I got McLaurin, I was like, yes, because I think this is probably going to be his best year. He's got the best quarterback he's had. And he's had, it's kind of like Allen Robinson, but worse, because his quarterbacks have just been awful, and he's still produced well. Yes. So, yeah, I think he can also, he's someone else, maybe not as high in Metcalf, but he could finish as a top 5 wide receiver if Fitzpatrick can just, because he's a gunslinger, and he just does whatever he wants.
Yeah, and I think this is McLaurin's year to break out and start being in that conversation of top wideouts. At tight end, you have Mike Gesicki. I gave him a B. Watching last year, him and Tua were in sync. Tua loved throwing the ball to Mike Gesicki. Mm-hmm. So I gave him a B. He's in that kind of middle tier. I don't necessarily trust Tua yet as a quarterback, but Mike Gesicki is his favorite guy. So.
Yeah, I gave Mike Gesicki a 3. I was really high on Gesicki because of the Tua thing, and he's also really talented. I mean, he's just. I remember there was one game where he had 30 fantasy points and it was when Fitzpatrick was quarterback. I think he's gonna be really good. The one thing I do worry about with Gesicki is they have Will Fuller on the team. They have Jalen Waddle, so they have a lot of options. So I am hesitant. But the thing with Tua's not really a deep ball guy, and Gesicki isn't a deep ball guy. So he's going to get a lot of... I think he's going to lead the team in catches, I think.
Yeah.
The Dolphins.
That's fair to say. And in your flex, you have Cooper Kupp. I also like him. I gave him a B+. And the addition of Matt Stafford. I like this offense this year.
I like Robert Woods better, but he wasn't there at the 4th pick, so I settled on Cooper Kupp. I really liked Cooper Kupp, and this was probably the best decision comparing I was between him and Daryl Henderson, and now with, like I said, I'm glad I didn't pick Daryl Henderson, so I gave Cooper Kupp a 4 because I think he's probably going to have his best, if not second best year ever. 2 years ago was really good, so it's pretty hard to beat that, but he's going to have a really good year, I think.
At defense, you have the 49ers. I gave you an A there. They're another defense that's really good. They have a lot of really good playmakers, and they're fully healthy. They've got everybody back. They got the Bosa brother back. So, sacks, turnovers, I like them. I gave them an A.
Yeah, I mean, I gave myself a 2. I only picked them because their first 2 matchups are pretty easy. They play the Lions, and I'm pretty sure they play the Panthers. I could be wrong. But I think I basically am kind of a guy that streams defenses. But the 49ers have the potential to be one of the best defenses because they have all these players back. But I mostly picked them for the Week 1 matchup because the Lions is a good matchup for them.
Right. And then Joey Sly for your kicker. It gave you a C there. We're going to have to see how Carolina works with Sam Darnold.
I kind of picked him as filler. I have Greg Zuerlein on my bench. He's going to be my kicker when he comes back because I think Greg Zuerlein's really good. He's finished as a top 12 kicker the last 4 seasons. But I mean, Joey Sly, he probably can kick the farthest of any kicker. He just is not very accurate.
Right.
But I mean, I didn't want a kicker of a player I had because that's always frustrating when you when you want a touchdown from your player, but you also want a field goal. So yeah. I think Joey Sly is just kind of a filler for me, especially because he plays the Jets Week 1. They'll probably score a lot.
Yeah. So overall, I gave you a B+, a 3.94 out of 5. Yeah.
So the draft went almost exactly the way I wanted to. So me personally, I have myself as the best team because I got all the players I wanted. Again, doesn't mean it's going to happen. I like these players more. Mike Gesicki could be a bust. Mike Davis could be a bust. DK Metcalf could be average.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm giving you an A. I think this is a great team. You're maybe have the best starting wide receiver group. I mean, Mike Davis at where you picked him is huge value, and I'm high on Joe Burrow as well.
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest question mark in this team is Joe Burrow. I don't really think Mike Davis is even a question mark, just because unless he gets hurt, obviously. But if anyone who hurt. And I guess Saquon Barkley is a question mark from where I got him.
Yeah.
But as a whole, I mean, he's going to, even at worst, he's going to produce 12 points a week.
Yeah. So next up, we'll move on to Ben's team, the highest rated team I have, which doesn't bode well for me because I play this guy Week 1. Very, very scared, to be honest. So we'll start off at quarterback. He has Russell Wilson. It's Russell Wilson. It's a good pick. I gave him an A there.
Talk to him.
I think, where I wanted to stay away from quarterback as long as I could, unless I could get a guy like Mahomes or Rodgers, but they went earlier than I expected, and I think there came a point where I said, well, now I got to pick a quarterback because I think they were flying off the board, and luckily Russell Wilson fell to me.
Yeah, and I was planning on picking Russell Wilson. You had the pick right before me. You took him, then I just snagged Joe Burrow instead, which I'm really high on. I picked the upside. I gave you a 4 for this pick because I think him and Metcalf, I'm rooting for Wilson because if Metcalf does well, Wilson does well as well.
Yeah, and I mean, if we can see a full season of the first half of the season of Russell Wilson, holy hell, Russell Wilson will be scary.
We keep every year, first 5 to 7 weeks. Why isn't Russell Wilson won MVP? Well, because he always sucks the second half of the season for some reason.
Yeah, so I mean, he keeps his fantasy value throughout the year. So an A for me there. Ezekiel Elliott as your running back 1. I gave you an A there as well. He's one I'm on the edge about.
Well, I wasn't thrilled with this pick. Jacob had the pick right before me. He picked Saquon, who I was hoping to get, and I believe Devontae and Tyreek Hill were gone by that point.
Yeah, Tyreek was definitely gone.
So I went best player available here, and so I went Zeke.
I still gave him an A. I mean, if you looked at him last year, he was a chunky monkey.
Yeah.
He looked lazy. He didn't look like he came in prepared to play football.
Right.
This year, he looks fantastic. Training camp has looked really good, and he's a good running back.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it except for last year. Last year was the only year we've been like, what's happening, Zeke? So I still gave you an A there.
And I think he's still one of the very few running backs in the NFL who's going to get 80% of the carries. I know a lot of people are high on Tony Pollard, but I still think Zeke Elliott's going to carry the ball the most.
Yeah, and I think Tony Pollard is only relevant to cutting into Zeke's production if Zeke isn't doing good.
Sure.
So if Zeke's doing good,
You're right.
you don't have to worry about Tony
You're
Pollard.
right.
At your running back, too, you have Miles Sanders. I gave you a B here. I like him. I talked about him a little bit past few shows. He's just an all-around guy. He'll catch the ball. He runs well. And this offense, I think, is going to be a very option-heavy with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Which gives Miles Sanders more opportunities to get volume.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
new offense, new quarterback. Hopefully a healthy Sanders. I think it gives him a chance to kind of it sets him up for having a breakout year.
Yeah.
So I gave Elliott a 5 for you because I think especially where you got him. I actually had Elliott as my number 5 running back. I had him above Kamara, which is kind of crazy, but I just don't know how I feel about Kamara. And I give Miles Sanders a 4. I agree. I think Miles Sanders will upgrade from the new coach because Doug Peterson refuses to have one running back. He has his committee, but he also downgrades because of what Jalen Hurts is. Now maybe Jalen Hurts dumps it off more. We'll see. If he does, awesome. So I gave him a 4. You got a 9 for running backs, so that's pretty good.
And my thing is, I think Jalen Hurts actually upgrades Miles Sanders because, like I told Ben, I feel like they're going to do a lot more options, RPO type of things, which gives Sanders the chance for volume. Because there is that first option of give it to Sanders and run, or keep it and run, or throw it. So he's that first option in that transgression of how things go. For your number 1 wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, gave you an A+. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't. He's top 4 wide receivers. As long as
his head's in the right space.
Yeah. But, I mean, we saw last year, Kyler, he chose a guy and threw it to him. And who better to throw it to than somebody like DeAndre Hopkins,
Yeah, that was definitely the easiest pick for me.
Hopkins might lead the league in targets. I mean...
I could see it.
Yeah. I gave you a 5 easily.
Yep.
He was my number 3 wide receiver. I was saying I was going to pick Metcalf second because I assumed he wouldn't fall to me. He almost did, but you picked right before me. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Then you have Tyler Lockett as your wide receiver 2. I gave you an A because it's the Seahawks offense, and regardless of what's going on, they throw the ball a decent amount. Tyler Lockett still gets his targets. And he's one of those slot wide receivers out there. So, I mean, he's quick, gets those quick passes. So,
yeah, no, I know DK Metcalf is the number 1 receiver on this team for sure, but I'm not. He's one of the few number 2 wide receivers like Adam Thielen that I'm not worried about him getting isolated or stranded. He's going to get his share.
Especially considering where you got him, he's a very boom or bust guy. But like if he's your wide receiver 2, that's fine. If he was your wide receiver 1, it'd be an issue. But yeah, I gave you a 3 for this pick. I like it. He's gonna have some weeks where he's gonna go off, or some weeks he's not gonna do well. But he's your wide receiver 2, and you got some other great players. So I would be happy with that pick.
Yeah, he's a player that's historically inconsistent. Like you said, he can go off weeks and then have really bad weeks. And I think if he starts making his floor, a week that's not 2 catches for 20 yards and no touchdowns, and he starts going up to 5 catches for, 60, 70 yards, that's a better floor, makes him more valuable. At your tight end, you have Robert Tonyan. I gave you a B here. Tanyan's just one I'm not 100% sure about because Adams gets a lot of the targets. They brought in Randall Cobb, who Aaron Rodgers wanted, so you have to assume he's going to take targets. You have Allen Lazard, who just gets overshadowed by Devontae Adams. I think Lazard's a really good receiver. You have Scantling, who is good for 1 deep ball a game. But Tanyan still works his way in there, and he's a red zone type of threat guy. So,
I'll be the first to admit that Tanyan's touchdown dependent.
Oh, yeah, he's way touchdown dependent.
But he scored 10 touchdowns last year. So.
Yeah, I had him for a stretch last year, and he did not disappoint me. He saved me on a few weeks.
I gave you a 2 just because he's really touchdown dependent. So.
Yeah. In your flex, you have J.K. Dobbins. I don't know if you switched to that, but
Nope.
I like it. He's a B+. He's somebody I kind of put in the same Miles Sanders category of how that offense is run. And we saw last year, he didn't start every game. He played in almost all of them.
Yeah.
But still racked up close to 800 yards, a good amount of touchdowns, and this year's only going to go up because he doesn't have to share with Mark Ingram.
Yeah, with Ingram gone, he's the guy now, and they still have Gus Edwards, but I think Dobbins has kind of separated himself as the number 1 there.
Yeah.
I'm not as high on J.K. Dobbins because Lamar Jackson, obviously, and Gus Edwards. I gave you a 3. I gave J.K. Dobbins the benefit of doubt. He was going way too high, though. He was going at, like, pick 29. He was never on my radar because I knew he might do well. I gave you a 3. It's your flex spot. It's pretty solid.
In the way I drafted, if J.K. Dobbins came around to me when I was picking running backs, he would have been a running back 1 for me. And we'll find out later why my running backs are also not fantastic. But we'll move down to your defense. You got the Patriots defense. I gave you a C here. But I'm probably doing myself a disservice by doing that because the Patriots defense, for some reason, is always better than you expect.
Because of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean they're always a good defense, but I just have uncertainty about that about their defense. So I gave you a C.
Yeah, I mean I usually save defense as one of my last picks, so Patriots ended up falling to me and was the best available there. So
yeah.
I gave you a 2 for the defense. Nothing too crazy. I think the Patriots are going to be solid. Same thing with the kicker. I gave you a 2 as well.
Yeah, and then you have Ryan Suckup. I gave you an A there just because Tampa Bay's offense is going to score a lot, and when they don't score touchdowns, they're going to score field goals. So really good value there at your kicker spot as well. Like I said, you're my highest grade. You're one of 2 people in the league to get an A, 4.05 out of 5. So,
all right.
You got 30 points for me, which was initially second, and now it's third. I just upgraded Beast Larson because of the James Robinson thing, so you're towards the top for me as well.
Okay.
We will move on to... So I'm going to have to ask you how to say your buddy's last name.
James Eichelberger.
Berger, okay. Does he have it as Eichelberger on his...
No, that's how you... I think that's how you spell it, but that's how you pronounce it, Berger.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so... Glad we got that out of the way. I did not know how to say his name. For his quarterback spot, he's got Dak Prescott. Gave him an A there. As long as Dak's healthy, all the weapons he has. We saw what he did the first 4 full weeks of last year. If he can come in and just pick up where he left off, he's going to be a great quarterback.
Yeah, I gave him a 4. I think he's going to be really good. I do worry about him playing week 1. But, who has he got as a backup? He's got
Danucci.
He's got Trey Lance as a backup, which is not a good... He's got to probably pick up a quarterback if Prescott doesn't start, though.
Yeah. The only concern is injuries because he's been dealing with his shoulder, apparently, for a while now, and they haven't given us an affirmative of, yes, he's fine, or... No, he's not, so we'll just have to see. At his running back 1, he has Nick Chubb. I also really like that pick. An A there for me. Chubb would be an A+ if it wasn't for Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
But either way, they both still... They actually are better when both of them are on the field, which is, crazy. Because you're like, oh, you're splitting touches, you're not going to be as good, but they're better when each other are on the field. So
yeah, I gave him a 4 for that pick. I always said I was saying a lot. I don't really like the second round running backs because you don't know what you're going to get for them. Nick Chubb, you know what you're getting for. You know what you're getting out of him. Maybe it's not the best because of Kareem Hunt, but it's still a 4. He's still going to produce 15 to 20 points a game probably. Just he's probably not going to have those really really big weeks because they're going to split the backfield a lot.
Yeah. Running back 2, Antonio Gibson. I'm high on Antonio Gibson. I like him. I gave him a B+, but he had a great rookie year. the team is saying they want to use him like Christian McCaffrey, which is yet to be seen. And is Antonio Gibson as talented as CMC? Probably not. But if they throw him into that kind of role, I like it. And he's a guy that I think is going to have another really good year.
I gave Antonio Gibson the benefit of the doubt. I've not seen enough out of him, but it's really I think he's going to do really well. So I give him a 4. I mean, I initially put him a 3. I changed it to a 4 because I think he's going to do really well. There's so much question marks around because we have no idea how he's going to be.
Right, and there's a lot of question marks around the offense itself. Antonio Gibson. So now we move on to Allen Robinson as his wide receiver 1. Again, I have question marks around the whole passing game of the Bears, but I still gave Allen Robinson an A. He's still a stud. So
yeah, I still gave him a 4. I agree. There's a lot of question marks, but he's still number 1. He still gets a lot of targets. He might be toward the top of targets. We'll see. Like I said, if Justin Fields is on the field, usually rookies pick one wide receiver, and why wouldn't you pick Robinson on this team? So he could be really good.
How do you feel about Robinson?
I like him kind of for that reason, and he's obviously the top target, I would say by far, not even close in Chicago. So, who's their next receiver?
Darnell Mooney.
Yeah, so Mooney's getting a lot of...
Rodney Adams looks really good in preseason as well.
Well, and Mooney's getting a lot of hype as well. Last year left a sour taste in my mouth with Mooney, but Mooney's somebody that could cut into that production.
Assuming, the Bears passing is probably going to be better, even if Dalton's on the field, because, Trubisky and Foles were terrible last year. So.
Yeah, and I think if they use Mooney more effectively this year, that'll be better for them.
I will say, though, if Justin Fields is on the field, I don't know if it would affect them, but as far as, short passes, it may affect Montgomery, but we already passed him. Let's keep going.
Yeah. So wide receiver 2, he has Amari Cooper. As much as I wanted to downgrade Amari Cooper a bit, I think he's still good. I gave him a B. Yeah, I gave him a B+. Just because CeeDee Lamb also is going to get in, and I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1, which will cut into Cooper's target share, but he's still good. He's still going to be a really good wide receiver, 1 or 2 for you. So I gave
him a 3. There's a lot of receivers in Dallas. He's gonna have games where I think he's way better than Gallup. He's more consistent.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, I think he's gonna be solid. Dak Prescott's more familiar with Amari Cooper than CeeDee Lamb, so he may end up being number 1. We'll see.
Yeah. Somebody I really wanted. He got taken right before I wanted to pick him. Tyler Higbee. I gave him a B+. Again, there's a lot of mouths to feed there, but the way that Matt Stafford throws the ball, he loves the tight end. Tyler Higbee, not last year, but the year before, had a really good season, and I think he makes this season his best season with a quarterback like Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I was between him and Gesicki. I ended up going with Gesicki just because I had Cup, but I gave him a 3. I think Tyler Higbee's going to have a good year.
Yeah. So at the flex, who I think is going to be the best rookie wide receiver this year, he was the Heisman winner. Devontae Smith.
He actually changed it to Cooks, but I think Devontae Smith's a better one to have there.
Yeah. I don't know why we would put Cooks there. I don't know why you would pick Cooks
I would
in
even
the first
put
place.
Chase Claypool there.
Yeah. Anyway, so at the time it was Devontae Smith. Who
So a
I would
combination
give the
of Cooks,
grade.
Claypool, and Devontae Smith. Yeah.
I would give Smith the highest grade of those 3. Claypool probably on the same scale there, but I gave him a B. He's going to be the top receiver for Philadelphia.
Unless Fulgham's still pretty good.
And you got Rager there, but
all these are going to be 2 for me because Devontae Smith, I don't know how good of a thrower Jalen Hurts is going to be.
Right.
Claypool, a lot of receivers in Pittsburgh, and Cooks, although he's number 1, the Texans.
Yeah. Where's your head with those 3?
No, I like Devontae Smith. I said last week, I think Smith, he's my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to fit right in with Jalen Hurts. Obviously, they played together in Alabama. And then with Chase Claypool, I think regardless of whatever this injury was that he had, I think he'll become the top receiver in Pittsburgh.
I will say the offensive rookie of the year is going to be a gauntlet this year because you got all the quarterbacks. You got a lot of receivers taken in the first round, and you still got Najee Harris as well. So we'll see what and. ETN's out of the conversation, obviously, but
Javonte Williams
and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is in the mix too.
I'd still go with because I find it hard. Like there's 5 quarterbacks taken. Wilson and Lawrence will play the whole season, and Justin Fields will probably play really quickly. I find it hard to believe that all three of them have bad years. Right. So I assume one of them is going to win.
Yeah, I mean. The rookie of the year last year was a good race with all of the talent. This year is going to be the same, I think.
Who won last year?
Herbert.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, it was Herbert.
I think it should have been Jefferson, but
yeah.
I mean, Herbert broke all the quarterback records though, so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it was close. It was a good race.
All right. Defense and kicker.
Packers.
C.
Gave him a C.
Oh, he changed it to the Panthers because they played the Jets week 1.
Oh well.
He's someone that streams defenses.
Okay. Yeah. Packers or Panthers, I'd give them a C regardless. I'm not a fan of either one of those defenses.
I mean, I'm just giving him a 2 because he always does different defenses each week. But I mean, I gave him a 1 for kicker because he's got the Texans kicker, which is
He put the Texans kicker in?
Yeah.
Why would he?
The
Rodrigo Blankenship, the rocket ship, is the
Maybe it's because the Texans might just kick a lot of field goals against the Jaguars. At least they'll maybe get into the red zone. So
another podcast I watched, the Fantasy Footballers, they love Rodrigo Blankenship. They do a boom boom kicker of the week, and every week it's Rodrigo Blankenship.
Well, anyway, if he keeps it at Fairburn, that's obviously a 1.
Yeah, that's bad decision.
Well, it looks like he cut Blankenship. Too.
Oh,
maybe you should pick him up.
I need a better kicker, so maybe that'll be an acquisition I make.
Overall, I gave him 27 points. It is 8th. So I mean, I think he's got a solid team. I just don't know if I trust him so much.
Yeah, I gave him where did he go? A B, 3.77 out of 5.
Ben.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at transactions. I was like, who else did he cut? I give him a B+. I think this is a good team. I think depending on who he starts as his flex, I'm gonna go B+.
Yeah. Let's try and speed this up. We still got 4 teams left, and
true.
We're getting we're approaching 2 hours already. So
all right, so we got Team Judge Judy, got Aaron Rodgers.
Team Aaron Rodgers.
Tom Brady, Aaron Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Mike Evans, Juju Smith-Schuster, Darren Waller, Laviska Shenault, the Bears defense, and Cody Parkey.
He changed it to Crosby. Thank God.
Crosby, that's good.
That's much better.
Either way, I'd give him a B at kicker. C for his defense. Top players,
especially week 1.
Yeah,
that's not a good one. Week 1.
Top players are Tom Brady and Aaron Jones. I gave them both an A. I gave Edwards-Helaire a B. Mike Evans a B. Juju I gave a C. I think he's wide receiver 3 there. Darren Waller an A+. He's one of those top 3 guys. And Shenault I gave a C.
So Tom Brady, I gave a 3-2 just because I don't know. It's going to be some weeks where he's going to be a 5, but he just doesn't run the ball. Jones and Helaire, I gave a 4-2, but I'm actually going to drop Helaire to a 3. Wide receivers, I gave Mike Evans a 3 and Juju a 2. I don't like Juju Smith-Schuster this year at all, and all the Tampa Bay receivers I've been giving a 3-2. Waller I gave a 4, though. Again, there's only 1 5 for tight end.
Gotcha.
And then Laviska Shenault I also gave a 2 because he may be the number 3 there. And on the Jaguars, that's not good. Bears, I gave it 2. Crosby, I gave Parkey a 1 because it's Cody Parkey.
Yeah.
But I gave him a 2. I think he should put Robbie Anderson instead of Laviska Shenault as flex.
Yeah. Overall, C+, 3.55.
Overall, he is my lowest rated team. He's 25 points. If Robbie Anderson was there, he'd go up to 26 because I give a point over Laviska Shenault.
No, I'll give him a B. I think, a solid running back group with Aaron Jones. I'm higher on Edwards-Helaire than you guys are. Not thrilled with Mike Evans as a wide receiver 1. I think those days are over of him being a top receiver on the team.
His team is so boom and bust. I mean,
right.
Smith-Schuster could have a terrible week very easily. Aaron Jones, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tom Brady as well.
And then, do you start Shenault or Robbie Anderson?
Robbie Anderson.
I would start Robbie Anderson.
Same.
So, but then Darren Waller. You could even put Logan Thomas at the flex.
I do like that he has A.J. Dillon.
Handcuff Jones.
That's a good move.
Yeah. Down to Team Dawson. Kyler Murray.
Whose team is that?
Did he change his name?
Oh, no.
Dawson. Okay, yeah. So at quarterback, he has Kyler Murray. Gave him an A+ there. Derrick Henry, I gave him an A+. Myles Gaskin, I'm not high on, so I gave him a C. Justin Jefferson, I gave an A. I really like Justin Jefferson. Then Julio Jones, I gave a B. Kyle Pitts, I also gave a B. Kenny Golladay, I gave a B. Ravens defense, an A. And Matt Gay, the kicker, a B.
Sorry. Kyler Murray, I gave a 4 to. I think he's going to be really good. Derrick Henry, easy 5. One of the top 6 running backs. Myles Gaskin, I gave a 1, though, because I really think it seems like Malcolm Brown's going to be the number 1. Speaking of which, I did pick him up because James dropped him. So check that out. Wide receivers, I gave Justin Jefferson a 4. I gave Julio a 3. I'm being kind of generous with that one. Again, I just don't know. Okay, I have no idea who's going to be the number 1 for the Titans, but I gave him a 3 because I also gave A.J. Brown a 3. Kyle Pitts, I gave a 4. I'm really high on Kyle Pitts. I think my bold prediction is going to finish as tight end number 2 this year. That's a bold prediction of mine. Flex, Kenny Golladay, I gave him a 3. Again, probably being too generous because I love my NIU boys who went to my college. But he's really talented as well. He's probably going to be the number 1 receiver there. I just don't know how this Giants offense is going to work. Ravens 2, Matt Gay 2. So overall, he got 28 points, which was 7th place for me.
I give him an A. The only question mark in this starting lineup for me is Myles Gaskin, but he is the top running back in Miami, unless you want to say Malcolm Brown. But great wide receiver group. I love Kyle Pitts, love Kyler Murray. A.
Yeah, I gave him a B+, 3.94. One of the higher ranked teams for me. Dream Team Frenchie has Baker Mayfield, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, Robert Woods, Deontay Johnson, Mark Andrews, DeAndre Swift, the Vikings defense, and Justin Tucker. Overall, gave him a B+. I gave Mayfield and Taylor a B, Austin Eckler an A, Woods a B+, because I gave Cooper a B+. Deontay Johnson I gave a B. Andrews an A, Swift a B, Vikings a B, and Justin Tucker an A.
So I actually gave Baker Mayfield a 2.
Oh, okay.
He's the lowest quarterback rating for me because I think that team's just going to run the ball down everyone's throats. Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler gave a 4-2. Both have incredible upsides, but I don't know how they're going to be used as much. But I do think he's got a good running back situation. Woods, I gave a 4-2. I'm really high on Robert Woods. I gave Deontay Johnson, along with all the Pittsburgh Steelers, a 2. Just because I don't know how good Big Ben is, and I don't know how the risk system's going to work. Andrews, I gave a 4-2. I think he's the number 1 receiver there. He has a tight end. Swift, I gave a 3-2. Same thing with T.J. Hawkinson. I think he's going to get a lot of targets just because they're going to be behind, and he's a catching running back. Vikings 2, Justin Tucker 3. He overall got 28 points once again, but I tie-breakered it, and he got 5th place for me.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a B-. I'm not thrilled with his running backs, Jonathan Taylor and Austin Eckler. I think a lot of people would be happy with that, but I'm not too sure. Robert Woods as a wide receiver 1 is a big question mark for me. I like DeAndre Swift as flex, but if I were him, I would really be praying that Michael Thomas gets back as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And then to my team.
We can talk more about your team if you want.
Okay. Justin Herbert. Not necessarily the quarterback I wanted, but he was on my board, and I like him. But I gave him a B+. I like him. Rookie of the year, I think he builds this year. Running back situation, I'm not thrilled with. I have Josh Jacobs and Raheem Mostert as the starters. Mostert's a boomer bust every week. hopefully he turns out to be decent. But I gave him a C+. Jacobs I gave a B. My receivers, though, I have Tyreek Hill and Calvin Ridley. I gave both of them an A+. Then Jared Cook as my tight end. He's just going to be dependent on Justin Herbert. So we'll see. Herbert threw the ball to Hunter Henry a lot last year, so hopefully Cook gets enough volume to at least be somewhat decent to give me points. CeeDee Lamb, I gave an A. I am real high on him. I think he's going to be that top receiver, and he's going to make a lot of big plays in a pass-heavy offense. Then defensively, I have Washington's defense. I gave them an A+. I think behind I honestly would put them as the top defense. But again, the Rams, the Buccaneers, Washington, I think all of those defenses have the chance to be the top one. And then Matt Prater, I gave a B. He's kicking for the Cardinals this year.
So Herbert, I gave you a 3-2. I am similar to Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is going to have more upside, though, because of the game situation. I gave you Josh Jacobs and Raheem Mostert both a 2. Yeah. Both of them, I worry about the 49ers always do committee, and Josh Jacobs has Henry and Drake behind, so that's rough. But you got a perfect score for wide receivers, 5 on each, no argument there. I think Tyreek Hill is going to finish as number 1 receiver. I wanted him. I would have taken him over Barkley, but you took him right before me. Jared Cook, I gave a 3-2. Again, I see what you mean. We'll see. I believe he's going to do well, but he has a very low start percentage on most teams. He's going to be fine. CeeDee Lamb, I gave a 3-2 as well. I mean, I couldn't put him higher than Cooper because I don't know who's going to be the best on the team. Washington, I gave a 3-2. One of the best defenses, Prater, 2. You overall got 28 points once again, and you ended up 6th for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a B+. I think I think really Justin Herbert could easily be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I mean, your wide receivers are obviously stellar, great defense. I'm high on Jared Cook. And then even going to your bench, you have 4 solid flex options with Edmonds, Rojo, Deebo Samuel, and Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, I like the depth, and I have 4 starting running backs for teams. They're just not great. So my overall draft rankings, Ben's in first. I have myself at second because of my wide receiver position. And then Team Breezes at 3, Team Dawson at 4, Jacob at 5, Dream Team Frenchie at 6, the Beast Larson at 7, Mama Bear Larson at 8, the Team Eichelberger 9, Magic Skull Bus 10, Team Judge Judy 11, and Team Hill 12.
Did Team Judge Judy get Jared Judy?
He did not, so I feel like that name needs to change.
So mine is, I have myself at number 1. Like I said, I got all the players I wanted. The draft went exactly how I wanted it to. I have Beast Larson. Is that your dad?
Yeah.
Basically because of James Robinson at 2. I have you at 3, Breezes at 4, Frenchie 5, you 6, Dawson 7, Eichelberger 8, Hill 9, Skull 10, Mama Bear 11, Judy I have last.
Okay. And real quick to finish off the show, some my guys who you don't necessarily have to have drafted them, but guys you think are going to be just break out for fantasy this year.
So I've already mentioned this. I think Kyle Pitts is going to finish as the number 2 tight end.
All right.
And I think Tyreek Hill will finish as the number 1 receiver.
Right.
And as far as my guys go, I think DK Metcalf will finish as the number 2 receiver.
All right.
That's my prediction.
My guys, I have CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to be the top receiver for Dallas. I just see him having a really great year. That's my top my guy. Behind him, I have Tyler Higbee, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Antonio Gibson. I think all 3 of those players are going to put together really good seasons, finish well above where people think they're going to finish. That's where I'm at with my guys.
Who was I going to say? Antonio Gibson. I think he's going to have a breakout year, both in receiving and rushing. And then I'm going to say, who was that? I was gonna take Kyle Pitts, but
here, I'll take T.J. Hawkinson instead.
No, that's all right. No, I think T.J. Hawkins is another good pick. I think this is his 3rd year now. He did a steady progression from year 1 to year 2, and he definitely has the talent to take the next step in being a top 5 tight end.
All right.
So quarterbacks, who's gonna be the? Let's rank all your rookie quarterbacks. Who do you think is gonna be the best to the worst?
Honestly, I think when Trey Lance starts, because it is a matter of time before he starts, I think Trey Lance will be the top rookie quarterback. Can't really drop Trevor Lawrence all that much, so I'd go Lance, Lawrence, Fields, Wilson, and then if Mac gets on the field.
See, I have a hot take. I think Lawrence will be number 1 just because he's just so talented. I'm actually gonna put Justin Fields 2. Okay. I'm gonna put like I said, I thought the Jets should have taken him, and this was before the Bears picked him, so it's not. I don't have proof I said that, but I did say that. I actually put Wilson number 3. I think Wilson looks really good. I have Mac Jones 4, and I'm putting Trey Lance 5. I don't understand that pick. I think he'll be good because of the 49ers, but as the pick itself, I did not understand that at all. It's a bold prediction of mine, but we'll see what happens.
I think he fits in well in
we'll see, yeah.
offense.
Yeah.
I will admit I'm wrong if it comes that way. But the thing is, I put the last 2 quarterbacks in the best situations, Mac Jones and Trey Lance. I just don't think either of them are NFL caliber, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to say Trevor Lawrence, number 1. He's just the most NFL ready. Trey Lance, number 2. Justin Fields, 3rd. Mac Jones, 4th. And Zach Wilson, 5th.
All right.
Well, I'm also putting Zach Wilson at 3 just because I feel like everyone's saying, oh, he's going to bust because of the Jets, which he probably will, but we'll see what happens.
All righty. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this week. Make sure to follow the links. They will be right here. And make sure to follow Jacob on Facebook, Ben on Twitter. We won't be here next week, but we will be here before week 1 of the regular season, so make sure you tune in then.
We'll do like a weekly planned thing about like picks. So.
Yeah, for sure. I am Ricky Larson. Thanks for tuning in to the Lucky Shots podcast. We'll see you next time.